This rare glow only appears in real empaths. Carl Jung once said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." In the same way, real empaths carry a rare glow that transforms every space they enter, often without even realizing it. This isn't just about feeling emotions. It's about embodying a frequency that can heal, uplift, and awaken others. In today's video on spiritual wisdom, we'll explore Jung's chilling truth about this rare aura and how you can apply these principles in your daily life for personal growth and happiness. Have you ever felt people sense something unique in you the moment you walk into a room? Share your experiences in the comments below. I'd love to hear your story. 1. The rare empathic aura. True empaths carry within themselves an aura that is impossible to ignore, a rare glow that Carl Jung described as the wounded healer frequency. This energy is not simply kindness or natural goodness, but the result of deep psychological alchemy, the inner transformation of pain into power, of wounds into wisdom. It is an energy that others can feel instantly the moment an empath walks into a room, a presence that heals without words, comforts without effort, and unsettles without intention. This aura is born not from ease, but from hardship, from heartbreak, loss, and loneliness that have been faced and transmuted instead of denied, where others become hardened by life's cruelty. The true empath allows suffering to break them open, and through that breaking emerges a strength that radiates far beyond themselves. This wounded healer frequency is both magnetic and dangerous, both a gift and a burden. It draws people close, often without them knowing why, as if the empath's presence speaks directly to their hidden wounds. Strangers open up with confessions, friends seek counsel, and even those passing through feel inexplicably seen. Yet this same light also attracts shadows of individuals who drain energy, who are unwilling to heal, but eager to feed off another's strength. Here lies the paradox of the empath's path: to embody a healing presence while learning discernment, to shine without being consumed, to offer compassion while protecting one's soul. This is where spirituality deepens, because the empath is called to balance openness with boundaries, generosity with self-care, and light with shadow. What Jung recognized is that this aura is forged through an inner process he called psychological alchemy, where suffering is not wasted, but transmuted into higher understanding. In modern life, this truth is more relevant than ever. Every betrayal, every heartbreak, every moment of despair can be used as raw material for transformation. Instead of letting pain close the heart, the empath learns to keep it open, to let compassion grow from wounds. This is why empaths carry a presence that cannot be faked or taught. It is earned through experience and through choosing healing again and again. It is why others may feel comforted in their presence even if no words are spoken, because their very energy tells a story of survival, resilience, and love. To walk this path requires courage, because the empath's glow exposes both beauty and shadow. Some will be drawn to it like moths to flame. Others will resist it because it unsettles them, reminding them of truths they would rather avoid. Yet the empath's role is not to be understood by all, but to embody the possibility of turning suffering into strength, to live as proof that wounds can be medicine. Spiritual awakening, in this sense, is not about escaping pain, but about facing it fully, and allowing it to carve the soul into something greater. It is about realizing that healing others does not come from perfection, but from having walked through the fire and emerging with a heart that still beats in love. The empath's aura, this rare glow, is not only a gift to the world, but also a reminder of responsibility. It teaches that resilience is not the absence of pain, but the transformation of it, that spirituality is not abstract, but alive in every choice to stay open, to forgive, to set boundaries, and to continue radiating light even when darkness presses in. To carry such energy is to live as both teacher and student, healer and wounded one, light bearer and human soul still learning. This is the paradox that makes the empath so rare and so needed. They walk through the same storms as others, but instead of drowning, they rise, and in rising, they light the way. If you feel connected to this rare empathic aura, affirm it now. Comment below, "I carry the rare glow," and let the world know your light cannot be hidden. 2. Origins in survival and trauma. Empaths are not simply people who feel more deeply than others. Their glow comes from something far more profound. Many of them were shaped by childhoods where safety was fragile, where being hyper-aware of the moods and intentions of others was not a choice, but a necessity for survival. Their nervous systems rewired themselves to adapt, transforming into what could be called emotional antennas, with mirror neurons firing at an unusually high level, and the limbic system becoming highly sensitive. This sensitivity, at first a defense mechanism, gradually evolved into a sacred energy field that radiates an unmistakable presence. Carl Jung described this phenomenon through the archetype of the wounded healer, someone who, through suffering, discovers not only their own resilience, but also a mysterious energy that can heal and awaken others. What once began as the instinct to endure became the foundation of a rare aura that silently influences and comforts those around it. This rare glow is both a gift and a challenge, a paradox woven into the empath's existence. On one side, it uplifts, calms, and heals those who encounter it, creating a sense of safety and connection without the need for words. On the other side, it leaves the empath vulnerable, drawing in both light and shadow, those who are nourished by their presence and those who seek to drain it. The life of an empath often feels like walking a delicate balance between giving and protecting, between allowing their energy to shine and safeguarding it from being consumed. This duality is not a flaw, but the very essence of their spiritual development, the constant transformation of pain into power, of wounds into wisdom, of survival into service. It is this inner alchemy that makes empaths living symbols of spirituality, embodying the truth that what once harmed them now becomes the light they offer to others. Everyday life continually reminds empaths of their unique wiring. Stepping into a room, they may feel the heaviness of unspoken tension or the lift of unseen joy before a single word is exchanged. Conversations linger long after they have ended, not because of the words spoken, but because the emotions of others are absorbed into their own being. This heightened awareness is not imagination, but a reflection of a nervous system attuned to the invisible signals of life. While others move through the world unaffected, empaths carry the weight and the beauty of emotions that do not belong solely to them. This constant exchange can be overwhelming, but it is also the source of profound insight. It allows them to see beneath the surface, to sense the truths others try to hide, and to respond with compassion that feels like healing in itself. Spirituality in this sense is not an abstract idea, but a daily lived experience, a practice of transforming sensitivity into guidance and connection. The true lesson is that the empath's glow, though born in hardship, is a sacred strength rather than a weakness. It is a living testimony that out of survival can come a gift powerful enough to change lives. Yet, like every great power, it requires balance and wisdom. Boundaries are not barriers, but shields that allow the empath to shine without being consumed. Grounding practices, whether prayer, meditation, time in nature, or creative expression, nurture their energy and keep it aligned with higher truth. And most importantly, they must remember that their gift is not meant to break them, but to awaken them and those they encounter. Carl Jung's reminder that the shoe that fits one person pinches another echoes strongly here, for the empath's path is unlike any other. Their glow cannot be fully explained, nor easily understood, but it can be lived with dignity, strength, and purpose. What began as survival became their most profound contribution to the world. A light of spirituality, a force of spiritual development, and a reminder that even in pain, something sacred can be born. Do you recognize this truth within your own story? If you do, affirm it boldly in the comments. I rose from survival. I carry the glow. 3. How the aura works. The aura of an empath works in a way that few truly understand, and Carl Jung offered insights that revealed just how extraordinary it is. The first stage is the energetic scan, where without effort, you begin detecting the emotions others are hiding. Grief, rage, fear, these unspoken feelings vibrate in the air, and your nervous system reads them like a silent language. This is not imagination, but a heightened sensitivity, a form of intelligence that allows you to sense what others are too afraid or too conditioned to express. It is here that the empath's journey begins, standing at the threshold between what is seen and what is felt. From scanning, the empath naturally moves into unconscious absorption. Here, Jung's idea of participation mystique comes alive. You are not just observing emotions, you are carrying them. Without realizing it, you hold fragments of another's pain within yourself. If someone's heart trembles with anxiety, you feel the tightness in your chest. If someone's anger simmers, you sense the fire beneath your skin. This stage is both a blessing and a burden, because the same quality that allows deep understanding can also drain you. Many empaths confuse this as weakness, but in truth, it is evidence of profound spiritual wisdom, the capacity to connect at a level most will never reach. Then comes the alchemical process, the sacred transformation. Unlike those who are crushed by the weight of raw emotion, the true empath has the rare ability to transmute it. Carl Jung called this the transcendent function, the psyche's capacity to hold shadow and light until something greater emerges. This is soul alchemy, turning grief into compassion, turning rage into clarity, turning fear into courage. Just as fire refines gold, your inner process refines suffering into healing energy. It is here that your power becomes undeniable, because what once threatened to drown you now becomes the current that carries you higher. The effect of this transformation radiates outward. Others feel lighter, calmer, and strangely healed simply by standing in your presence. They may not understand why, but their spirits respond to your frequency. Jung described this rare glow as invisible to the eyes, yet impossible for the soul to ignore. It is not born of natural charm or surface-level goodness, but of scars turned into strength, wounds polished into wisdom. This glow is a living testament that pain, when transmuted, becomes a source of light for the world. To carry this glow is to carry both responsibility and power. Your aura does not just reflect who you are. It actively shapes the energy of those around you. This is why some are drawn to you as if to warmth, while others are unsettled, even threatened, by the intensity they cannot name. It is the paradox of the empath, magnetic and vulnerable, healer and target, a soul that walks with quiet radiance in a world still learning how to see. And as Jung wrote, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Through each stage, scanning, absorbing, transforming, you are becoming that truth, not merely surviving, but illuminating. Leave a like and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss powerful insights like this. Share your energy with us in the comments by declaring, "My aura radiates healing and light." 4. Attraction of archetypes. The aura of an empath is a powerful magnet that constantly draws in both light and shadow. Carl Jung's insights into archetypes reveal why this happens and why it can be both a blessing and a curse. On the darker side, the empath attracts the wounded child, the shadow projector, and the energy vampire. The wounded child seeks comfort for unresolved pain, pulling at the empath's compassion, but offering little balance in return. The shadow projector unconsciously casts their fears and insecurities onto the empath, mistaking sensitivity for a mirror of their inner chaos. The energy vampire, perhaps the most draining, feeds on the empath's life force, leaving them exhausted and questioning their own worth. These encounters are not just psychological interactions, but energetic exchanges that weigh heavily on the empath's spirit, demanding discernment to avoid being consumed. Yet the same aura that draws the broken also attracts the awakened. Positive archetypes, such as the conscious seeker and the authentic self, are pulled into the empath's orbit. The conscious seeker longs for growth and healing, entering into a relationship of mutual exchange rather than one-sided dependence. The authentic self, rare but invaluable, comes without masks or hidden agendas, resonating with the empath in a deep and honest connection. When empaths meet these archetypes, their energy expands, their presence becomes a beacon of spirituality, and their glow serves as a catalyst for genuine transformation. These encounters remind the empath that their gift is not only about surviving the shadows, but also about amplifying light. The challenge lies in what Jung called archetypal confusion, where the empath struggles to tell who comes to heal and who comes to feed. This confusion breeds cycles of mistrust, blurred boundaries, and unhealthy attachments. Many empaths, mistaking pain for depth, remain entangled with those who drain them, believing their mission is to heal every wounded soul they meet. In truth, not every wound is theirs to carry, and not every presence is meant to be welcomed. Spiritual awakening at its core requires intelligence as much as compassion, the ability to recognize archetypal patterns, to see beyond appearances, and to choose wisely which energies to engage. In modern life, this confusion intensifies. Digital spaces amplify archetypes, allowing energy vampires and shadow projectors to disguise themselves behind curated images and words, while true seekers and authentic souls remain less visible. The empath, scrolling through feeds or opening their heart in relationships, may feel drained without knowing why. This is where discernment must become a daily practice. Jung reminded us, who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. Looking within allows the empath to strengthen their inner clarity, to filter the energies approaching them, and to protect the sacred glow they carry. Grounding practices, whether through meditation, prayer, or time in nature, help release energies that do not belong to them. Boundaries are not walls, but forms of spiritual wisdom, lines that protect the empath's light without dimming it. Choosing carefully who belongs in one's circle ensures that their gift is preserved for those who truly value it. The empath's aura was never meant to be consumed by confusion. It was meant to be a vessel of healing and awakening. By embracing discernment, the empath transforms their rare glow from a fragile flame into an enduring light that guides not only themselves, but also those worthy of walking beside them. 5. The mirror effect. Carl Jung once revealed a powerful truth about empaths that explains why their very presence often provokes such intense and polarized reactions from others. He described what can be called the mirror effect, where empaths unconsciously reflect back the hidden emotions, wounds, and unacknowledged truths of the people they encounter. To conscious, self-aware individuals, this reflection feels like recognition. It brings peace, comfort, and even healing, because the empath mirrors back the beauty of their inner growth. But to those who are disconnected from themselves or trapped in denial, the same reflection feels threatening. It shines light on the shadows they would rather keep buried, and that exposure can trigger discomfort, hostility, or attempts to drain the empath's energy. This is why empaths often find themselves at the center of extremes, either magnetically adored or unfairly rejected, and it has little to do with their own behavior and everything to do with the unconscious material they awaken in others. When you carry this empathic energy, you become like a living mirror, and every interaction becomes a reflection of where someone is in their own journey of spirituality and spiritual development. Those ready for honesty see in you a chance to grow, while those who fear their own truth resist, sometimes fiercely. This creates a paradox for empaths. They may feel both deeply loved and deeply misunderstood at the same time. The gift of this mirror effect is profound because it means your presence alone can catalyze transformation. But the burden is heavy because it also invites conflict and projection from people unwilling to face themselves. This dynamic teaches an important lesson. You cannot take everyone's reaction to you as a judgment of your worth. The hostility or envy you encounter often has nothing to do with you personally, but instead reflects someone else's struggle with their shadow. Understanding this allows you to release the weight of responsibility for others' emotions. Yet, it also means learning to protect yourself. Without boundaries, the constant push and pull of attraction and rejection can drain your strength and leave you questioning your own value. Empaths must develop discernment, knowing when their mirror is helping and when their energy is being misused. The beauty of Jung's insight is that it affirms the empath's role as more than simply a sensitive soul. You are a catalyst for awakening. Your presence can stir unconscious truths to the surface, and while not everyone will thank you for it, those who are ready will be transformed by it. That is why some people open their hearts to you instantly, while others distance themselves. It is the reflection, not the mirror, that determines their reaction. This understanding invites you to honor your gift without resentment and to walk with clarity, knowing that your rare glow is not meant to please everyone, but to illuminate what is hidden. To live as an empath with wisdom is to accept both sides of the mirror effect, the peace you bring to some and the discomfort you stir in others. It is to remember that your role in the larger journey of human growth is not to be universally accepted, but to embody authenticity so powerfully that those who meet you cannot help but see themselves more clearly. Some will cherish that reflection. Some will resist it, but your task is not to change their response. Your task is to remain true, to guard your energy, and to let your spirituality guide you in using this gift with purpose. In doing so, you embody the essence of spiritual development itself, living as a light that awakens, heals, and transforms, even when it unsettles the world around you. Have you ever noticed how others reflect back the very energy you carry? Share your experience in the comments so we can all learn from one another. And if you haven't explored this yet, simply type "I will reflect light" below to begin this powerful journey together. 6. Collective role. Real empaths carry within them a connection to the collective unconscious, a vast reservoir of unhealed trauma, wisdom, and memory that belongs not just to one person, but to humanity as a whole. Carl Jung, with his profound intelligence and spiritual wisdom, described this rare phenomenon as the empath's ability to sense currents that flow beneath the surface of everyday life. They are not limited to feeling the sadness of a friend or the joy of a loved one. Instead, they act as collective antennae, tuned into the invisible frequencies of the world itself. They can walk into a room and sense tension without a word spoken, or feel the heaviness of global grief long before it becomes visible. Jung once said, "The collective unconscious contains the whole spiritual heritage of mankind's evolution, born anew in the brain structure of every individual." And for empaths, this truth is not abstract theory, but an everyday experience. This heightened awareness allows empaths to receive universal wisdom and warning signals that others overlook. They sense the archetypal forces at work, the hidden patterns shaping events, and the silent whispers of humanity's wounds. Yet with this extraordinary perception comes a burden few can imagine. They often carry pain that is not their own, absorbing suffering that flows through the collective field. Jung called this risk psychic inflation, the danger of being overwhelmed by forces too vast for one individual to hold. For empaths, the weight of collective trauma can feel unbearable, leading to exhaustion, confusion, or even the sense of being consumed by energies beyond their control. And still, within this very vulnerability lies their true strength. Empaths embody the archetype of the wounded healer, transforming what they carry into insight, compassion, and healing for others. Their very presence can ease storms in another person's soul, not because they speak the right words, but because they radiate an energy born of deep suffering transmuted into light. Jung reminded us there is no coming to consciousness without pain, and empaths live this path daily. They hold the paradox of carrying both the world's wounds and its hope, sensing darkness yet offering light, feeling chaos yet bringing calm. The rare glow that surrounds an empath is not an illusion. It is the natural aura of one who lives in two realities at once, grounded in personal life, yet deeply attuned to collective existence. This glow is both a gift and a responsibility, demanding that empaths learn to balance their sensitivity with grounding practices, strong boundaries, and wise use of their intelligence. It teaches them to embrace their role not as victims of overwhelming emotions, but as vessels of transformation. Their task is not to drown in the flood of collective energy, but to rise above it, shaping it into wisdom, compassion, and guidance. To be an empath is to stand at the edge of humanity's consciousness, to feel what others cannot, and to carry forward the possibility of healing for the whole. 7. From wounded healer to sovereign healer. An empath who remains unconscious of their inner wounds inevitably becomes an emotional sponge, absorbing the weight of others' grief, anger, and pain until their own identity feels blurred. Carl Jung called this the path of the wounded healer, someone whose sensitivity is shaped by hidden scars that make them both compassionate and fragile. Yet in the realm of spirituality and spiritual awakening, wounds are not meant to be lifelong chains, but stepping stones to higher wholeness. The very suffering that once drained an empath holds the seed of transformation, waiting to be recognized and integrated. Through the process of self-healing, the empath begins to shift into a sovereign healer, sensitive but not shattered, compassionate but no longer without boundaries. This evolution requires the courage to face personal trauma, to acknowledge patterns of overgiving, and to reclaim a sense of sovereignty that allows empathy to flow with strength rather than depletion. Jung's insight aligns with modern spiritual wisdom. Empathy must be conscious, not unconscious. True healing means you can still feel the depths of others, but you no longer lose yourself in their storms. Instead, you become a steady presence, grounded, discerning, and resilient. As this inner work deepens, the empath's aura undergoes a profound transformation. It shifts from carrying a wounded frequency to radiating integrated wholeness. Others sense it immediately. The calmness you bring into a space, the quiet strength that surrounds you, the glow that feels like light forged in shadow. This energy acts as both a magnet and a filter. It attracts healthier relationships, people who honor and uplift your presence, while repelling those who once fed on your openness. Spiritual awakening reveals that this glow is not merely symbolic. It is psychological alchemy made visible, the proof that pain has been transmuted into wisdom. Jung emphasized conscious empathy, the ability to hold another's sorrow without drowning in it. In practical terms, this means listening with compassion while staying rooted in your own truth, offering kindness without sacrificing your stability, and giving without erasing yourself. It is a balance between love and boundaries, openness and self-preservation. In a modern world filled with noise, collective anxiety, and emotional chaos, such conscious empathy becomes an act of survival as well as service. It protects your energy while allowing you to remain a healing presence for others. The empath, who embodies this sovereignty, discovers that their gift is no longer a burden, but a power. By integrating wounds into wisdom, they embody spirituality as transformation rather than escape, strength rather than sacrifice. Their light is not fragile, but enduring, not naive, but deeply aware. This rare glow that Carl Jung described is the signature of a soul that has moved beyond unconscious absorption into conscious radiance. a presence that uplifts without losing itself, reminding us all that true healing lies not in denying pain, but in transmuting it into a wholeness that cannot be shaken. Don't forget to subscribe for more wisdom on transforming your wounds into strength and stepping fully into your role as a sovereign healer. 8. Evolutionary and collective purpose. Carl Jung believed that real empaths hold a rare evolutionary role in guiding humanity toward higher consciousness, for they embody authentic feeling and conscious boundaries in a world that often rewards suppression and disguise. Their ability to express emotions with honesty while maintaining inner strength shows that vulnerability is not weakness, but a profound model of integrity, inspiring others to live with truth. In a society built on appearances, empaths quietly remind us that authenticity is the true foundation of spiritual development and meaningful connection. Every act of empathy creates what Jung described as consciousness ripples, waves of healing that extend far beyond the individual. These ripples transform families, friendships, and entire communities, not through forceful effort, but through the silent power of presence. You have likely felt this before, when the calm energy of someone softened your anxiety, or when their compassionate attention gave you strength. Empaths do not need to convince or demand. They embody spirituality in motion, living proof that spiritual development is not confined to private meditation, but revealed in the way they uplift and heal the people around them. Jung also saw empaths as forerunners of humanity's collective evolution, carrying within them a glimpse of what higher awareness looks like in practice. While many pursue possessions or status, empaths reveal that true progress lies in connection, understanding, and the raising of collective consciousness. Their sensitivity, often seen as a flaw, becomes a prophetic gift pointing toward the future of human growth. They show us that spirituality is not about escaping the world, but about transforming it through presence, compassion, and wisdom born of experience. The greatest transformation comes when empaths stop viewing their sensitivity as a curse and begin to embrace it as a superpower. Instead of being overwhelmed by emotions, they learn to recognize this gift as a deeper way of perceiving reality. They can sense the truths hidden behind words, feel the unspoken pain in others, and intuitively understand the forces shaping human behavior. When supported by strong boundaries and self-awareness, this sensitivity no longer drains them, but empowers them, allowing them to live with clarity and purpose. What once felt like an unbearable weight becomes a source of vision, guidance, and strength. To be an empath, then, is to carry both responsibility and grace. You are called not only to heal yourself, but to stand as an example for others, showing that pain can be alchemized into wisdom, and that sensitivity can be the key to higher purpose. Your presence becomes a light in dark places, a mirror that reflects both truth and hope. Through your authenticity, your boundaries, and your compassion, you help shape the spiritual awakening of humanity itself. This is the rare glow Jung spoke of, the invisible energy that makes you magnetic, the sign that your spirituality is not merely personal, but part of humanity's collective journey into higher consciousness. And so, the mystery of this rare glow reminds us that true empathy is not a weakness, but a profound strength, one that Carl Jung himself recognized as both a blessing and a burden. If today's message touched you, I invite you to carry it into your own journey of growth and self-discovery. Don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who may need this wisdom, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. Make sure to turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our upcoming videos filled with insights to guide your path. Spiritually awake people don't do these anymore. Carl Jung knew why. Carl Jung once said, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." In today's world, being spiritually awake isn't just about what you add to your life. It's also about what you stop doing. The path of awakening calls us to release old habits, distractions, and energies that no longer serve our growth. As you listen to these insights, think about your own journey. Which of these patterns have you already let go of? And which are you still holding on to? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear how these principles are shaping your daily life. Welcome to Spiritual Wisdom, where together we explore the truth that can transform both our happiness and our destiny. 1. Spiritual awakening is a shedding, not an adding. Spiritual awakening is not a process of adding more to your identity, but of peeling away what was never real to begin with. The patterns, masks, and expectations that once seemed necessary gradually feel heavy, suffocating, and false. Carl Jung reminded us that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And this wisdom points to the essence of awakening. It is not about creating a new self, but about uncovering the authentic one that has always been waiting beneath the surface. As you awaken, you begin to notice how many of your choices were guided by the need to fit in, to please, or to survive. What once felt intelligent for protection, shaping yourself to meet the demands of others, seeking validation, hiding your true feelings, now feels like betrayal of the soul. These patterns do not disappear overnight, and you do not force yourself to stop them. They fall away naturally, like old skin that no longer fits. Just as a snake quietly sheds what it has outgrown, so too do you release behaviors that cannot contain the new life rising within you. Jung observed in countless individuals that transformation rarely arrives in a dramatic burst, but in a quiet, consistent unfolding. Genuine spiritual wisdom reveals itself as a slow release rather than a sudden performance. The unconscious begins to rise into awareness, and in that awareness, the old habits lose their grip. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate, Jung said. An awakening is precisely this: the shift from being ruled by invisible patterns to consciously stepping into truth. As this process deepens, you may find yourself unwilling to engage in shallow conversations, drama, or the endless cycle of seeking approval. These are not acts of arrogance or rejection. They are signs that your inner self is finally strong enough to no longer feed what drains you. Instead of grasping at validation, you begin to rest in confidence. Instead of pleasing everyone, you grow into authentic compassion. Instead of hiding behind masks, you show up as a presence. What falls away is not a loss, but a revelation. In surrendering the false, you allow the true to shine. The intelligence of the soul does not demand that you become more. It invites you to become less conditioned, less masked, less fragmented, so that you can return to the essence of who you really are. The journey is not about collapse, but about unfolding. Not about striving harder, but about surrendering deeper. With each layer released, the light of authenticity grows stronger. And in that light, You recognize that awakening was never about becoming someone new. It was always about remembering who you have been all along. Comment below. I release what no longer serves me. If you're ready to embrace the true shedding of spiritual awakening. 2. They quit seeking approval. When spiritual awakening deepens, something inside you shifts so profoundly that the old hunger for approval becomes unbearable, because the soul recognizes it as a false currency. Carl Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And when this realization dawns, you begin to see how much of your life was lived through masks designed to please others. Approval seeking, once a habit that felt necessary for survival, suddenly feels like self-betrayal, because every time you mold yourself for recognition, you are trading authenticity for applause. In the noise of modern life, where likes, shares, and comments are used as proof of worth, this lesson becomes even sharper. Spirituality teaches that no amount of external validation can replace the deep, unshakable sense of value that comes from within. The awakening self begins to see how chasing approval drains energy and fragments identity. You may notice how often people sacrifice their truth to be liked, posting what they don't believe in, saying yes when their soul whispers no, or bending dreams to fit into the narrow boxes of expectation. Yet when spirituality takes root, you feel an inner resistance rising against these patterns, a refusal to keep abandoning yourself. Jung described this process as individuation, the journey of becoming whole, and in this wholeness, you no longer crave the fleeting nods of recognition because they pale in comparison to the peace of living aligned with your essence. Authenticity, once frightening, becomes irresistible, and the desire to be validated by the crowd fades, replaced by a deeper commitment to your own soul's voice. This shift is not about arrogance or indifference. It is about liberation. When you stop living for approval, you stop being controlled by it, and suddenly, the opinions of others lose their power to define you. In today's culture of comparison, where identity is often measured in numbers, spiritual awakening reminds you that the metrics of the soul cannot be counted. Inner worth is timeless and cannot be given or taken away. To accept yourself fully, shadows and all, is, as Jung wrote, the most terrifying thing, but it is also the most freeing. You begin to understand that those who truly resonate with your energy will recognize you without you needing to prove anything, because authenticity is magnetic in a way performance never could be. The wisdom here is simple but profound. Stop begging for approval and start embodying your worth. In modern life, this might mean saying no to a toxic relationship that only survives through your constant pleasing, walking away from a career path that drains your spirit just to look respectable, or silencing the urge to post for validation and instead sharing from genuine inspiration. Spirituality does not erase your longing for connection, it transforms it. You no longer want attention from everyone. You want resonance with the right ones. And paradoxically, it is when you release the chase for validation that you attract genuine love, respect, and alignment. Not because you demanded it, but because truth naturally draws what belongs to it. That is the intelligence of spiritual wisdom Carl Jung uncovered. The spiritually awake no longer seek approval because they have already found something far greater than their authentic self. 3. They quit needing to be special. At the beginning of awakening, many people experience what Carl Jung described as spiritual inflation, a sense of being chosen, superior, or somehow above the rest. It feels like stepping into a hidden truth that others cannot yet see. And for a time, the ego clings to this sensation of specialness. But as spiritual development matures, this illusion begins to dissolve. True spirituality is never about standing on a pedestal or demanding recognition. It is about embodying authenticity without the craving for applause. The spiritually awakened discover that the desire to be seen as unique is nothing more than another mask, another performance for the outside world. And they realize that real growth lies in quietly living their truth. Jung observed that genuine maturity in spirituality is not expressed by claiming, "I am awakened," but by a deep humility that grows naturally when the ego's need for superiority fades away. Instead of trying to prove their uniqueness, spiritually awake people embody it effortlessly, like a river that does not announce its flow, yet sustains life all around it. The more they release the pressure to perform, the more their presence speaks louder than any declaration. This shift is not about shrinking who you are, but about allowing your individuality to shine without effort or competition. Jung understood that the ego, with its constant need to compare and elevate itself, is often the greatest barrier to consciousness. And so, when that need begins to fall away, what remains is something far more radiant, authenticity that cannot be manufactured, a quiet light that others naturally feel and are drawn to without explanation. In our modern world, dominated by social media and constant validation seeking, this lesson holds deep relevance. Everywhere you turn, you are encouraged to perform, to curate your identity, to measure your value by numbers, to shout louder to be noticed. But awakening pulls you in the opposite direction. It asks you to pause and ask, am I expressing my truth, or am I chasing approval? Spiritual development teaches you that real worth is not tied to recognition, but to the quiet alignment of your life with your inner essence. When you no longer depend on attention to confirm your value, you step into freedom. You begin to understand that the divine spark within does not compete. It simply exists, complete and whole in itself. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." This is the essence of awakening, not to be special compared to others, but to be whole within yourself. The spiritually awake no longer waste energy on proving their importance, because they have discovered that worthiness has always been their birthright. They do not ask the world to recognize them. They simply live in the flow of their truth, with quiet confidence and steady peace. The deeper message here is simple yet transformative. Spirituality invites you to release the burden of superiority and to rest in your authentic being. The more you let go of the need to be special, the more extraordinary life becomes, not through performance or comparison, but through the silent power of presence and the wisdom of simply being. If you're ready to release the need to be special and simply live in your authentic truth, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom, and share your reflections in the comments below. Let's grow together on this path. 4. They quit performing happiness. Spiritually awake people no longer perform happiness because they have learned that real spiritual wisdom is not about maintaining an image of endless positivity, but about embracing the full depth of human experience. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And that truth means accepting both light and shadow, both joy and sorrow. Pretending to always be fine only creates a mask that suffocates the soul, while allowing yourself to be real opens the door to true freedom and intelligence in your spiritual journey. When you stop performing happiness, you release the exhausting need to convince others that everything is perfect. Instead, you begin to honor your feelings honestly, whether they are grief, doubt, or fear. And this honesty becomes the foundation of your strength. Jung reminded us, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. In this way, you no longer deny the parts of yourself that are hurting. You invite them into awareness, where they can be healed. Just like the sky holds both day and night, your soul carries both light and shadow, and both are equally essential to your growth. This shift also frees you from the trap of external validation. When you stop needing to perform for others' approval, you step out of the prison of appearances and into the authenticity of your own truth. It takes courage to admit, "Today, I am not okay." But that very courage is what makes you strong and deeply human. People can sense when you are real, and it draws them closer, because authenticity carries a magnetic power that pretense never can. Spiritual maturity is not measured by how cheerful you appear, but by how whole you allow yourself to be. Jung warned, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Performing happiness only keeps your unconscious locked away, while authenticity sets you free. By allowing yourself to rest when you are weary, to cry when you need release, and to celebrate joy when it truly flows, you honor your humanity and embody spiritual wisdom. So, the journey of awakening is not about forced positivity, but about living truthfully, with intelligence, honesty, and courage. When you stop acting happy and start being real, you step into the deeper freedom of becoming your whole self. And that is where the essence of true awakening lives. 5. They quit needing certainty. Carl Jung once reminded us, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. And in this truth lies the realization that certainty, though it may feel safe, becomes a cage that locks the soul away from true growth. Spiritual awakening reveals that clinging to absolute answers is not wisdom, but fear disguised as control. And the moment you begin to release the obsession with knowing everything is the moment you step into the deeper intelligence of spiritual wisdom. Life was never meant to be lived like a formula where every step is predicted. Instead, it was meant to unfold like a mystery, guiding you through paradoxes and unanswered questions that expand your spirit rather than confine it. In modern life, certainty is worshipped. People chase financial guarantees, fixed outcomes in relationships, and rigid belief systems. But awakening makes you see that certainty itself is an illusion, fragile and temporary, while openness to not knowing creates a strength that cannot be shaken. The awakened soul learns to sit comfortably with paradox, understanding that questions themselves are a sacred teacher. As Rainer Maria Rilke beautifully wrote, "Be patient toward all that is unsolved in your heart and try to love the questions themselves. Because in loving the questions, You stop demanding the universe to hand you guarantees and instead begin to trust the unfolding of life. Spirituality teaches you that wisdom is not a static possession, but a living dialogue between your conscious choices and your unconscious depths, between reason and intuition. This is why awakened people slowly let go of their hunger for certainty. They begin to trust their inner compass, knowing that every choice, whether it feels right or wrong, carries a necessary lesson. In practice, this looks like releasing the pressure to define every relationship with labels, choosing to trust in timing instead of forcing outcomes, or allowing your beliefs to evolve instead of holding on to them out of fear. Letting go of certainty does not mean you drift without direction. It means you live with trust rather than control. When you no longer demand guarantees, you create space for synchronicity, for intuition, and for possibilities your logical mind could never predict. Life becomes an unfolding journey rather than a rigid map. And this shift brings a peace far deeper than the brittle comfort of control. Jung observed that true spirituality is not about clinging, but about releasing. Not about answers, but about presence. And the privilege of becoming who you are lies in this surrender. When you stop needing certainty, you find yourself open to wisdom that grows slowly, like light filtering through cracks in the darkness, guiding you not toward guarantees, but toward authenticity. In this way, spirituality transforms fear of the unknown into reverence for mystery, showing you that the unknown itself is not a threat, but a sacred invitation into the fullness of life. Are you ready to release the need for certainty and step fully into trust? If so, comment below. I embrace uncertainty to affirm your commitment to this path of spiritual awakening. 6. They quit blame. Spiritually awake people quit blame because they realize that carrying it only prolongs suffering and prevents true freedom. Blame keeps you trapped in a story of victimhood, where the past dictates your present and shapes your future. But spirituality teaches that liberation begins when you reclaim your power. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." And this truth reveals why the spiritually developed refuse to remain in cycles of accusation. They see that while harm and injustice may have shaped their journey, constantly pointing fingers does not bring healing. Instead, they take ownership of their growth, not by denying pain, but by transforming it into wisdom, strength, and clarity. When you quit blame, you begin to see patterns that were once hidden and recognize your role in how you respond to life. This is not about excusing wrongs or ignoring wounds, but about choosing not to surrender your power to the people or events that once hurt you. Rather than replaying the same painful narratives, you redirect energy towards self-discovery and transformation. Spirituality becomes practical. Instead of blaming a workplace for your misery, you choose to set boundaries or create new opportunities. Instead of blaming a broken relationship, you learn its lessons and enter new connections with a wiser heart. Instead of blaming the world for being unfair, you build resilience and discover the strength to shape a more meaningful path. Carl Jung observed that real spiritual development is not achieved through sudden, dramatic change, but through gradual releasing, a slow but steady shedding of the old skin that no longer fits. Blame is one of the first things to fall away because it suffocates the soul. Each time you refuse to indulge in blame and instead turn inward, you open the door to growth. Slowly, you experience a quiet yet profound liberation where peace no longer depends on external circumstances, but on your inner state. This inner strength allows you to respond rather than react, to rise above chaos rather than be swallowed by it. The spiritually awake know that freedom is never found in controlling others, but in mastering themselves. They have learned that every experience can be a teacher, every disappointment can spark resilience, and every wound can refine the spirit. The deeper the pain, the greater the opportunity for awakening. And so, they stop wasting energy on blame because they understand it is a chain that ties them to what they wish to escape. In letting go, they reclaim not only their power, but also their joy, their clarity, and their sense of purpose. To walk this path is to see that blame serves no one. It is ownership, responsibility, and conscious evolution that transform the soul and lead to the true liberation that every seeker of spirituality longs to experience. 7. They quit spiritual bypassing. They quit spiritual bypassing because they realize that spirituality is not about escaping pain or hiding behind illusions of light, but about embracing the full spectrum of life. Instead of pretending that suffering doesn't exist, they allow themselves to feel it, to sit with it, and to learn from it. Carl Jung once said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." And those words remind us that true awakening demands facing what hurts rather than denying it. Spiritually awake people understand that bypassing only creates a fragile mask, while courageously engaging with their wounds brings lasting transformation. When they stop bypassing, they no longer use positive slogans or spiritual cliches to cover their struggles. They don't hide grief under the phrase, "everything happens for a reason," nor do they dismiss sadness as weakness or anger as low vibration. Instead, they see these emotions as messengers pointing to deeper truths within. They begin to embody a balanced intelligence where spiritual wisdom meets human honesty. They live with one foot in heaven and one foot on earth, fully present in relationships, work, joy, and pain. In this presence, they find that emotions are not enemies to conquer, but signals to integrate. Carl Jung often spoke about the shadow, the hidden parts of ourselves we would rather not face. Spiritually awake people no longer pretend that the shadow doesn't exist. They recognize that ignoring it only feeds it, while acknowledging it brings real freedom. By daring to look at their anger, their fear, and their shame, they reclaim their wholeness. What was once repressed becomes transformed into strength. This is why Jung observed that there is no coming to consciousness without pain, because pain, when faced, becomes a doorway into deeper awareness. As they release the urge to bypass, their compassion also expands. They no longer use spirituality as a way to feel superior, but as a bridge of connection with others. They stop judging those who struggle, because they know how much courage it takes to face wounds honestly. Their laughter becomes healing, their tears become sacred, and their scars become wisdom. Instead of trying to transcend their humanity, they honor it, knowing that divinity is found not in escape, but in embodiment. This shift marks the true maturity of awakening, no longer chasing illusions of constant bliss, but embracing the raw truth of life. To quit spiritual bypassing is to accept that every shadow carries a lesson and every wound carries wisdom. It is to live awake, to live whole, and to live free. If this message resonates with you, share your thoughts below. Not sure what to say? Simply comment, "I see clearly," so I'll know you made it to the end. 8. They quit isolation. Awakening often begins with solitude, because in the early stages, you feel the need to step away from the world, to listen to your inner voice, and to protect your energy from distractions. This retreat is not weakness, but a necessary pause, a time to strip away illusions and face the truth within. Yet as your spirituality matures, isolation no longer feels like a sanctuary. It begins to feel like a cage. The awakened spirit understands that growth cannot remain locked away in silence, because true transformation leads you back into conscious connection with others. Carl Jung observed that the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. And this reflects the essence of spiritual awakening: the return to relationships that refine, expand, and deepen your being. Instead of superiority or self-erasure, you learn to form relationships rooted in authenticity. You no longer approach people with masks, roles, or the need to impress. You show up as yourself, unhidden and unafraid. The intimacy you create is not about merging into another or controlling them, but about allowing two whole beings to stand together with presence and respect. In a modern world where loneliness has quietly become one of the greatest epidemics, this shift is powerful. Many people scroll endlessly, surrounded by digital noise, yet remain unseen and unheard. Spiritual awakening reveals that shallow approval and empty validation cannot feed the soul. You crave depth, truth, and communities that honor presence over performance. This new way of connection changes how you live every day. When you are with someone, you are not distracted, rehearsing your next words, or glancing at your phone. You are fully there, listening not only with your ears, but with your spirit. Presence becomes your gift, and it creates bonds that are both intimate and liberating. In this way, relationships stop being a stage for ego battles or codependency, and instead become a sacred ground where two souls can grow side by side. Solitude still has its place as a moment of reflection, but you no longer mistake isolation for enlightenment. The path of spiritual awakening leads you into the world with a new heart, one that seeks connection without fear, superiority, or dependence, and one that turns ordinary encounters into transformative experiences of genuine intimacy. 9. The deeper truth. Quitting is liberation. The deeper truth is that quitting is liberation, because every act of release opens the doorway to authenticity, freedom, and spiritual development. When you stop living for approval, you no longer measure your value by the reactions of others, but by the quiet strength of your own soul. Letting go of the need to feel special frees you from endless comparison, and you begin to recognize that your worth has never depended on standing above anyone else. It has always been intrinsic. Dropping the exhausting performance of roles and masks allows you to breathe more deeply, to live more honestly, and to rest in the peace of simply being. Releasing the obsession with certainty teaches you to trust life's unfolding, to lean into mystery, and to understand that true spirituality is not found in rigid answers, but in walking faithfully through the unknown. Each release of approval, specialness, performance, certainty, blame, bypassing, and isolation creates sacred space within you for authenticity, inner power, wisdom, embodiment, and meaningful connection. Carl Jung reminded us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Spirituality, then, is not about building a new identity, but about peeling away every false layer until the self that has always been true emerges. This is a slow death and rebirth of identity, a cycle where the illusions you once clung to dissolve, and what remains is the essence of your being. Just as autumn leaves fall, not as a sign of death, but as preparation for renewal, so too does the soul let go of what no longer serves, so it can be reborn into clarity and strength. Spiritually awake people no longer cling to blame, because blame anchors them to the past and keeps wounds alive. They no longer bypass pain with shallow positivity, because they understand that healing requires facing the shadow with honesty and courage. They no longer isolate themselves, because awakening reveals that separation is an illusion, and that compassion and connection are the lifeblood of the human spirit. In a modern world saturated with noise, pressure, and competition, these acts of release become revolutionary. Every time you surrender an old pattern, you reclaim your wholeness. Every time you refuse to play society's empty games, you align more deeply with your authentic power. And every time you release control, you discover the peace that arises when you allow life to flow through you. The message is clear. Spiritual development is not about adding more layers to who you think you should be, but about stripping away illusions, lies, and expectations until only truth remains. To walk this path is to understand that your strength lies not in accumulation, but in release. Not in proving, but in presence. Not in striving to become someone else, but in remembering who you already are at your core. And so, the journey of the spiritually awake is not defined by what they add, but by what they've learned to let go of. The wisdom of Carl Jung reminds us that true awakening is a process of release, refinement, and deep inner clarity. If today's message from spiritual wisdom has inspired you, I invite you to carry these insights into your daily life and notice how they transform you from within. Before you go, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom, and turn on notifications so you won't miss the powerful content we have coming your way.